Absolutism, a political theory holding that all power should be vested in one ruler or authority. Absolutism existed in many different societies and countries throughout the history of man, including England, France, Spain, Russia, Germany, and North Korea. Absolutism in Spain began around the late 1400s with Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile. So that they would not lose their power, the family of Ferdinand and Isabella continued by inbreeding with each other.
The epitome of an inbred would be Philip II of Spain. Philip had an extremely large jaw due to inbreeding. The nation of Spain saw themselves as the nation chosen by God through divine right. They believed they were more important than most other nations because God had chosen them to have power.
England was another example of a country with absolute rule. This was because they had a hereditary monarchy. James I, the cousin of Elizabeth I, believed in divine right. Just like Spain, they instilled the belief that God gave them the power to rule over the entirety of England. Although they continued to believe in divine right, the Magna Carta soon abolished the monarch's absolute power.
France was considered an absolute power under Louis XIV. He became king at the age of 4. He stated that he was ruling by divine right until his death in 1715. He said, "L'état c'est moi," which means, "I am the state." He also created Versailles, which housed the nobility so he could keep his eye on them. This shows his power by making sure the potential threats don't rise.
An absolute power was practiced in medieval Europe. The belief was used in the 1900s and is still used today. This was demonstrated by more modern-day dictators such as Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, Kim Jong-un, and Mr. Mueller. Joseph Stalin was a dictator from Russia who practiced absolute rule. Born in Georgia, he managed to achieve power after the death of Vladimir Lenin, and he got total control after he purged his potential threats and his own people to prove his power.
Adolf Hitler, from Nazi Germany, was another absolute ruler in Europe. He was born in Austria and achieved power after World War I. He had swayed the people of Germany on his side while he was the self-proclaimed chancellor. He used his absolute power to send all the Jews, homosexuals, gypsies, and anyone who was not part of the Aryan race to concentration camps.
In a more modern sense, Kim Jong-un is a dictator from North Korea who instills his power by starving his people, purging them, and by proclaiming that he is their god. Kimmy shows his absolute power through these actions. He also follows in his father's footsteps and his grandfather's footsteps and will continue to do so until his death. But in a more local sense, Mr. Mueller, a West Virginia native, controls over his tiny domain and threatens to destroy anybody if they question and/or disturb him. He instills psychological fear onto those under him and draws on his people to claim them as his own, not to mention the 3,000 detentions that he's given out.
These are all absolute rulers that have relatively similar practices as those from the 14th and 15th century Europe. Absolutism has not changed since its origin and continues to oppress all those who are under its control.